Very good. Good evening. Welcome to the meeting of the Plymouth Community School Board for April 9th, 2019. If you'll join us in the pledge, please.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. First item is to set the agenda. Any additions or corrections?
We had a couple of personnel additions and added a document to the adjusting.
With those additions, entertain a motion to accept the agenda.
Second.
Motion and second. Any questions? Hearing none, all in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Audience participation. Thank you all for coming. Are there items on the agenda anyone would like to speak to this evening? Yes, sir.
I'm Hugh Smith. I'm the junior class officer, or junior class vice president. I'd like to speak on the iPad, both the transition towards purchasing iPads next year rather than computers, and I'd like to bring forth some concerns we as class officers, as well as many students and the student body as a whole, had with that decision.
If I can interrupt just for a second, so I'll make a note of that, and when we get to that item, then we'll take the comments.
Sorry.
That's all right. It's all good. Thank you. Anyone else? Yes, ma'am.
Laura Pryor, item 4.12, just legislative report.
Thank you. All right. If anybody changes their mind, we'll have another opportunity towards the end of the meeting as well. We'll move on then to focus on learning this evening. We have the Widener School of Inquiry. Sophie.
Good evening. It is my pleasure to bring a group of our seniors with me this evening from the Widener School of Inquiry. And if you were at this same board meeting in April last year, you know that I brought some students who participated in CTE programs who were seniors last year, and they discussed their path and their impact of the CTE program. And so as we approach our fourth, it's hard to believe it's going to be our fourth class of graduating seniors, I thought it would be great to bring some students who are going to go on to post-secondary education after high school. And these students have not only engaged with their academic courses, they've also been very involved in the high school and extra and co-curricular to help kind of blaze their own trail on their path to adulthood. And one of the privileges of being a high school educator is to see that huge transition from 9th through 12th grade. I can remember, I think, every single one of them when they came in as freshmen, and boy, have they changed and blossomed and grown, and I'm really proud of them. I'm a firm believer that you get out of your education what you put into it, and they have immersed themselves not only in their academic courses, they've all faced probably a lot of challenges as well that they've gone through, but they've also really been immersed in co and extracurricular and the school community. And I'm excited for you to hear just a few comments from them about how Plymouth High School has impacted them. A few weeks ago, I asked them if they would be willing to present at the board meeting, and I actually have 6. So when we get to the very end, my 6th one could not be here tonight, and I have a video from her. And I asked them if they could answer this question: how have your 4 years at Plymouth High School impacted you and your future plans? And so they're going to share that with us tonight, and I'm excited to have them here. And I probably should have been navigating that as I was talking. These are our students, and I'm going to go ahead and let Ariana come up to the podium.
Hello, my name is Ariana Buckby-Smith. I plan to attend the ASAP program at Ivy Tech and major in psychology. So before coming here to Plymouth High School, I had very bad and unexperienced communication skills, and the thought of talking in front of the crowd was really frightening. Being involved in WSY all 4 years has helped me grow in oral and written communication. I personally believe that now I have better communication skills when it comes to a public setting, and it has helped me overcome the fear of speaking in front of crowds. Through March and Band, I learned leadership, endurance, and responsibility. And I'm really thankful for Mr. Ames and the amazing teacher that he has been these past years, for always being positive and caring about his students on a daily basis.
Hello, I'm Rachel Bachman. I plan on attending Indiana University and majoring in accounting. Throughout my 4 years at Plymouth High School, I have gained tremendous communication skills. Through presenting in WSOI in all my 4 classes, I have become more confident in my speaking. Not only has this helped me in the classroom, but also when presenting at Business Professionals of America when being judged by real-life business professionals in the events that I chose. I know that the skills that I've learned at Plymouth High School will help me not only now, but also in my future.
I'm Parker Gamble. I will be attending Wabash College next year. And Plymouth High School, I've always been encouraged by teachers to explore a wide variety of my interests, both in terms of academics and in terms of extracurriculars. So if you don't know, I am visually impaired, and nationally visually impaired students have a fairly low rate of attending a 4-year institution. However, at Plymouth High School, teachers have always been willing to go above and beyond in terms of meeting my needs as a student. For instance, Ms. Moore would allow me to come in during my study hall if I was unable to read the board of notes one day, and nearly every other teacher has a similar story of how they've been able to craft their lessons for my needs in particular.
Hello, I'm Edgar Garcia Cuauhtlan, and I will be attending DePaul University next year, majoring in global health. And throughout my 4 years of high school, I have participated in numerous activities, clubs, and extracurriculars. However, the activity that I will miss the most is going to be speech and debate. These 4 years of speech I'm going to cherish more than anything because, truth be told, I was actually mute or quiet at the beginning of high school, but thanks to speech, I have learned how to use my voice, express myself at both a physical and vocal level, and communicate in and out of the classroom on a day-to-day basis.
I'm Brianna Sloniker, and I'll be attending Purdue University to study agriculture education. During my 4 years at PHS, teachers and staff have given me the opportunity to experience personal growth through being involved in the internship program and multiple clubs. I have been able to take these experiences and apply them to real-life situations. In my internship program, I have gained better communication, public speaking, and even teaching skills which will help me in my future career.
I had it earlier, I tested it.
In the meantime, I think I need to give them a little bit of advice on maybe the Moline Bell game or the two of them. I don't know if they're going to be talking to each other at that game.
It's great to have a lot of It's freestanding.
Okay.
I'll get up there.
Okay.
Sadly, I cannot be with you all in person tonight because I'm competing at my first outdoor track meet of the season, but I still wanted to share with you the impact that Plymouth High School has had on my life over the last 4 years. Throughout my time as a student athlete at Plymouth High School, I've been positively impacted by a wide range of teachers, coaches, and programs. I can attribute a great deal of my academic success to the wider school inquiry and the teachers who have encouraged me to think outside of the box, step outside of my comfort zone, and effectively lead my peers. Challenging curriculum and diverse learning style has allowed me to develop my oral communication, a skill which has long been one of my weaknesses. My ability to confidently speak in front of other people is something that I'll carry with me throughout my life, and is only one of the skills which I've acquired and strengthened throughout my 4 years at PHS. On an athletic note, I have represented PHS on many different stages, playing on 3 different sports teams, bringing home sectional championships in both track and basketball, and serving as one of 18 student athletes from around the state on the IHSAA Student Advisory Committee. I've been given the opportunity to flourish in many different ways because of my time at Plymouth High School, and I'm confident that I now have the tools to succeed in the next chapter of my life. Thank you very much.
And that was Celia. She just made the decision yesterday to go to Marquette. It was between DePauw and Marquette, and she's going to go to Marquette. So I appreciate you listening to these seniors. They truly are great examples of kids who come into a high school, take advantage of all the programs, the teachers, the coaches, everything, to really craft out that future with our support, and I can't wait to see what they do. I'm sure they'd be happy to answer any questions you have as well.
Anybody have any questions?
Thank you very much. Always entertaining.
Well, thank you all for coming. I don't know if I have any questions. I wish you all the best of luck. And the foundation that you've talked about here this evening, I hope served you very well. So thank you for being here, and good luck to you all. Go Tigers.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we'll move on then to our consent agenda. Is there any item within the consent agenda that either one of you want to pull out and consider separately? No? With that, I'll entertain a motion to accept the consent agenda.
Second.
Approve, I should say. We have a motion and second. Any questions or comments? So I have a motion and second. All in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carried. A couple of
introductions here, Mr. Delk. You want to start?
Sure. I have with me our new PHS volleyball coach, Mr. John Hutton. He comes to us from Tippecanoe Valley. He has 25 years of coaching experience, and got to witness him coach this past year, and saw, I guess, the best way to describe it, and a lot of his peers described this when I talked to them, were his positivity and intensity, but also a passion for the game and for people. And so I know he's going to bring that to us here at Plymouth High School. He was the head coach at Tippecanoe Valley for 8 years. During that time, it became state ranked at one point, and he really built a program from the ground up. Our high school is obviously coming off a really good, strong season, thanks to the coaching staff and the team and the kids that are coming back. And I know Coach Hutton is well aware of that and was very excited about that as he expressed that in the interview process. He's really ready to build on that foundation. So I'm offering you Mr. John Hutton today. Okay. Awesome.
Thank you. And I'd like to recognize Brandon Berger. This is a transfer on the agenda that you just approved, but from Assistant Director of Transportation to Director of Transportation beginning this summer as Mrs. Usme begins her retirement. Brandon's done a great job in his role as assistant and is fully prepared to step into this new role and lead the transportation department. So, congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate it.
welcome, or congratulations. Okay, we'll move on to our business transactions. Our first item is a project update.
So, welcome back, Derek, from the Swim Corporation to provide an update on the project.
Everybody, it's too hot.
Yeah, it's too hot. Of course, we're just going to miss the snow tomorrow, I think. So yeah, the weather's broke. Things are really starting to pick up out there. We had our drone flyover end of March, so we got some shots there. So we've had 17. The biggest driver right now is the mason. We got 17 bricklayers, which is extremely. I mean, it's nice to have that many there. So we got the glue for them. We got them keeping busy. Things are going. We started pouring the second floor slab on decks in the academic wing. Getting the areas in between the classroom wing and the gym where we left off this winter. Getting those stoned ready for slab on grade again. Should start pouring those back up too here in the next few weeks. Again, it gets a little tricky with the mason because he's got to build that center section. A lot of them walls are 30 foot in the air for the band, choir, music area, cafeteria, and kitchen. So we want to get him in there before we start pouring the floor so he doesn't get in there and start backing up. So there's little areas, pathways that you'll see throughout the building once they start pouring every pieces out, just so the masons can kind of back and forth and not damage anything. Mechanical, electrical, plumbing, all them guys, they've been out there working underground, just getting their overheads in. The locker room's really taking shape. We should be done with the blocking there by the end of the month. Just continue for so now a lot of the equipment's ordered. Everything's been going, coming, so we should start to see a lot more equipment show up. As far as mechanicals here at the end of May, early June. They poured the second floor of the elevator mezzanine, where all the air handlers sit for up there. So they just poured the equipment pads today, so we'll start lifting those up next week. That's the last slide. But yeah, overall, things are going really well. We got a nice jump on the slabs early on before winter hit in the fall. So we kind of flip-flopped. We were supposed to be pouring decks, but the weather was nice enough that we just poured the slab. Yeah, a lot of guys. We had a progress meeting there. There's 15 guys in there. They're all itching to get out here and get going. So it's going well. Any questions? We're picking some colors. Get a lot of that dialed in. Had some terrazzo samples picked with them today. So all the hallways will have that terrazzo in there. Just in the main entry of the cafeteria. So that'll be nice, durable feature there. Site-wise, we're really just kind of holding still on the site until we get the mason out of the way. Well, brick, he's having a little brick delivered this week. So we'll be starting with some brick. We're going to start the high walls around the gym. And work your way around the building. Once we get that in, we're weather tight as far as, except for the windows, but we can temporarily close those so we'll be able to start painting here in the locker room area probably in the next few weeks. Once that breaks up. So you start to take shape. Hope for some decent weather and just keep trucking.
Sounds good. Keep it up.
Thank you.
Thanks, Derek.
All right, have a good night.
Thank you. Go to item 4.2, consider lease renewal agreement with Apple. Bruce?
I'll figure out when I get come up here to the podium.
Do you need me to click it for you?
No, I can. What was that, Ted? Nothing too? Okay. So good evening. It was about 4 years ago, almost to the date, that I stood up here and we kind of talked about our first 4 years with Apple and entered our second. And now I can't really believe that we're starting into what will be our 9th year, in a one-to-one environment. And I'm excited on everything that we've done so far and look forward to what we're going to do here in the future. So I just want to talk a little bit about kind of where we are now, how we got here, and some of the conversations that we've had and what we want to do moving forward. So if you have any questions as I get talking, interrupt me. I'm just no problem. So first of all, unless Amy, do you want to proceed anything before I start? Okay. So it kind of all started with a tech committee like we did about 4 years ago. We convened representatives from all buildings, all grade levels, tried to incorporate math, science, everything, all the curricular areas as well as administration and principals. Started the conversation. I'll be quite honest with you. Our intention was, we evaluate devices, what we've done in the past. Between Andy and I, we kind of had a vision of what we would do, just kind of renewing what we currently had with MacBooks in secondary. and the junior high school course, and then, iPads we got one K1, we thought about expanding that through fourth grade at the elementaries to kind of go down to one device at the elementaries, makes it easier for transitions for my department and moving devices and all that stuff through the summer. So, as we convened our tech committee, those were kind of the thoughts in our head. We got to discussing it. We got some members of the tech committee in the audience, which I'm glad to see here to help support me, looking at y'all. So anyway, as we got talking about it, we did a kind of roundtable, talked about the discussion, about the committee, about what we've done, what we want to do moving forward. When it was kind of all done, we were talking about iPads in K through 4 and wanted to show some of the benefits and the educational benefits that the iPad can do. So we did a little demo, let the secondary kind of watch, and quite honestly, I just kind of lit up about some of the things, some of the features that iPads can do in classrooms. So that really got the conversation started pretty quickly. We were talking with our Apple sales reps. We had some very aggressive pricing on MacBooks, some very aggressive pricing on iPads. That was kind of on the timeline of their quarter closing. So we had to make some fast conversations happen, which we did. And so what our recommendation would be is actually a transition to an iPad deployment in K through 12, which freaks everybody out, including myself. And honestly, as I stand here now, I can excitedly say that iPads is really kind of a cool thing. I think Brooke can probably test. I've never really been a big supporter of iPads. We've had our out before, especially just in K1. But with some of the things that Apple's done over the last few years as far as management and some curricular enhancements that they've done on them, it quite honestly is an awesome education tool. And I think we have an opportunity to do it right moving forward. So, unless you have any questions so far. So I'm just going to talk about a little about what's included in that. And then some of the concessions, if that's the right word of saying it, about what we're kind of doing for some alternatives. So iPads in K through 12, right? Very exciting. But some of the concerns that we've had are we type a lot in high school. We do a lot of papers. So what about keyboards? And keyboards are supported, of course, on iPads, Bluetooth, and cases within them. So our intention would be that we not necessarily have a keyboard for every student in a one-to-one setting, but more or less have keyboards in the media centers that students can go check out. So if they got a big paper that they want to write or something like that, rather than type on the keyboard or the screen itself, which is very doable, they can check out a Bluetooth keyboard and have that with them for as long as they want it if the keyboard better suits them. One thing that I think I know put my mind at ease and hopefully some others is we will still have MacBooks. So our intention is to have probably close to 1,000 or so MacBooks that will have an inventory in the media centers that recognizing that there are programs, curricular programs, K through 12, such as broadcast, Project Lead the Way, and things like that that an iPad really can use it for. So the intention would be if teachers are collaborating, have a project that maybe an iPad isn't the right tool for. Very similar to what a keyboard would be. You could go to the media center, you can check out a MacBook and have a MacBook to use for quite honestly as long as you need it for a project, for a week, for a day, for a weekend, things like that. So those are some of the kind of things that we've talked about. The iPads that we're looking at do support Apple Pencils. Anybody knows what Apple Pencils are? Got some excitement there with art and the creativeness of an Apple Pencil and some of the things that we can do as well. One other thing to note as far as MacBooks is our intention is that the staff MacBooks will stay with the staff. So every staff member will get an iPad as well as keeping their current MacBooks. Some of the reasons behind that are some of the legacy systems that we do with digital forms, Adobe signatures, printing, and things like that are a lot easier to do on a MacBook than an iPad. But each teacher will have an iPad in their classroom as well as an Apple TV, which would give them the flexibility of actually getting up and not being tethered to the wall. So they can actually take their iPad or their MacBook, walk around the room, and not so much be sitting behind the desk. Not that you do. But it'll give you that flexibility of being able to get up and walk around the classroom like we never had before. So part of this, part of the lease packet that you guys have in your board docs. One thing that I'm pretty excited about is something that we haven't had for quite a while, and that is professional development that's built into the lease. So with this lease, we would have 48 days of Apple professional services that would be on site for us to use over the course of 4 years. We can break that up, we can customize that to how our staff needs it, but it's a resource that, quite honestly, is going to be an awesome fit for our staff and our students. Any questions so far? I feel like I'm talking a lot of it. No? Okay. So, some of the, I guess I'll say financial benefits to doing this. Quite honestly, the biggest thing that I think Jeff can maybe attest to, since he and I share some time in court, are the savings to our families. So our MacBooks, quite honestly, are expensive devices. We're looking at about $1,000 per. So if a device is damaged, whether it be accidental or not, there are a lot of times that we're invoicing our parents for those costs. So the iPads have, first of all, a lot lesser price point per device. The replacement costs are a lot cheaper. We're looking at about $250 total replacement cost versus almost $1,000 per family. Our textbook rental fees can go down. Right now we're charging about $100 for our MacBooks. We can almost cut that in half with an iPad. They will have 3 years of Apple Care warranty, but a benefit, again, to what Apple offered us is what they call, it's a per seat Apple Care. So what that does is that allows us, if a student has, let's say, an accident, because those happen, right? So it allows a student to, I'll just call them breaks or fixes over the course of the 4-year lease. So, use Jen for an example. First day class starts, we're going to issue Jen an iPad. She's going to leave it on top of her car when she leaves. She's going to run over it, okay? So, absolutely going to happen.
That was my phone.
Yeah. So what can happen is Jen can bring that back in. Under normal circumstances, if we were in our current employment, we would charge her the full price for that device, whether it's a MacBook or an iPad whatsoever. With this Apple Care Plus, she can actually do that twice over the course of 4 years, and it costs her zero. It costs the corporation zero. We send it to Apple, they send us a new one, we give it to Jen. The nice thing about that is Apple doesn't care that Jen's done it twice, and maybe Julie hasn't done it at all. So when Jen does it the third time, what we can do is we can give Julie's device to Jen, and Julie can get a brand new. So there's some logistics behind that. But to kind of wrap your head around it, it's basically two incidents per student, not individual student as a whole student device. So that is a huge cost savings to our family and to the corporation as well. Lastly, I've already talked about the device cost. Quite honestly,
before you move on,
sure.
how often do these, not necessarily the examples you gave, but how often are we having situations of having to replace or repair?
Is Tracy still in here?
I'm sorry?
Tracy, I was looking at Tracy earlier because she's in the high school library, and the media centers are kind of point of contact for that. So, Tracy, how many times do you think you get somebody coming in the library a week?
Probably 3 or 4 times a week.
3 or 4 times a week. Now that's not necessarily.
And that's varying degrees of.
That's what I was gonna say. That's not necessarily I left it on top of my car and it's a complete loss. It's everything from I broke the headphone jack off inside to I cracked my trackpad and things like that. I do have some repair costs since we started this lease. In calendar year 2016, the corporation spent about $28,700 on repairs. 2017, we spent about $44,700. Now, mind you, that's the first and second year of the lease. So those costs go up, obviously, as they get some more wear and tear on them. And then in 2018, we spent $74,000 on repair costs as a corporation. Yeah, I heard a move about that. So lastly, and you got it in your board packet, is basically just the financial savings to the corporation. So this lease with a K through 12 iPad deployment, our annual payments would be reduced by almost $200,000 per year. So that's all my talking points. Anybody have anything to add?
No, I think in summary, it's an opportunity to maintain some steps toward continued fiscal responsibility and capturing some savings and really an environment that continues to be more and more of a struggle from a state level perspective and how things are funded. And at the same time, not it'll be a change in device, but it's still a quality device in the hands of great teachers and great kids. And we're have been listening to and will continue to listen to some of the worries, and they really mostly centered around just typing load and lower grades, and we want to be as responsive to that as possible and ensure that we're listening to the concerns and also intervening with those. To if a kid needs a keyboard, we're going to make sure they have a keyboard. Kids working on a project and they just need to go back to a MacBook on that, and we're going to have those available for them to be able to do that.
We've been fortunate to be one-to-one for some time, longer than a lot of schools I can think of, but more trying to get there. What are you seeing? Have we talked to other schools, and what is the trend, and what are people doing out there?
Yeah, so, as far as devices, we are, like you said, fortunate. We were one of the very first districts in the state to go one-to-one specifically with Apple products and MacBooks. And even up to right now, they're, I think because of the price point of the MacBooks being more expensive, we are still one of the very few that have MacBooks K through 12. As far as Apple schools, Apple themselves have marketed and have put a lot of investment and time in the education tool for their company, the iPad. It's very flexible. It's very, I'll say, seamless in transitioning from apps on it, it's an incredible education tool. As far as trends, kind of like you said, I've gone to some conferences, I've done some professional development, and I get to the point where, I think Plymouth has really led the pack when it comes to these kind of initiatives and technology. And sometimes I just have to say, man, if you haven't gone one-to-one yet, get on board, let's do it. And those are becoming fewer and far between. I think everybody recognizes that technology, it's not about the device. It's not about whether you've got a MacBook in your hand or an iPad. It's just the tool that we use that supplements our classroom, supplements our teachers. And quite honestly, that's kind of, as Andy said it, the staff that we've got can make this a huge impactful improvement for our students.
Other districts with iPads?
Yeah. So, we won't be the first, right? And that was one of the concerns too is, we'll look at state testing. And quite honestly, when we went one-to-one 9 almost years ago, that's kind of why we ended up in MacBooks. So back then, iPads were brand new. They weren't in any kind of enterprise environment. Chromebooks didn't exist. So when we evaluated tools back then, we were looking at Windows laptops and we were looking at MacBooks. MacBooks were really one of the only devices that could get us through the complete day without having to charge the batteries. Windows units were only a couple, 2-3 hours, and then you have to charge it again. But when Mr. Tyree back then, we were looking at it, we said, you know what, we're gonna end up tearing our labs out because those costs, we didn't have the money to do both, right? We couldn't do a one-to-one deployment and then also have labs in all of the buildings. So we knew that the devices that we were going to pick had to support state testing. That was really kind of the reason that we went MacBooks to begin with. Now, I should say all software developers are targeting and building their apps and their browsers to support not just iPads, but Android tablets, Windows and MacBooks, of course, Windows laptops and MacBooks, of course, too. But as far as what we do right now with our curriculum and testing, iLearn, there's an app for iLearn, there's an app for that. There's pretty much an app for that. So the MWA that we do, iLearn, of course, being a big one, and all the other tests are also for iPads.
We had some examples, some good examples here of students going on to different types of post-secondary. What about the preparation for what I hear what it does here in high school? What about when they go on to whatever they're going to go on to what are we hearing in that environment?
I kind of look back and one of the things that we did when we went one of the MacBooks was we got rid of Microsoft Office. Remember getting rid of Microsoft Office before? Yeah. Okay. And that was a big deal because everybody in the world used Microsoft Office. But the argument would be, do we really teach kids how to use Microsoft Office, or do we teach them how to type and how to use a spreadsheet, regardless of what that end tool is? Okay, so again, this is just a device, but this device is becoming more prevalent everywhere. So the medical field, doctors are carrying around the Mac Mini in their pockets now, or the iPad Mini, not the Mac Mini. The iPad Mini in their pockets, because quite honestly, I learned today it's in their lab coats. The lab coats were designed specifically for the size of the iPad Mini, so the doctors can put them in their pockets and carry them around, which I thought was pretty awesome. I know Atamco is doing a lot of app development for the iPads. If you want to talk about that.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know the details, but I know they're up at a big week in South Bend right now, and in their R&D department, they have created apps for the manufacturing industry now that are iPad use and all over the country, all over the world. So it's not an obsolete thing. Just for entertainment, I guess. I was watching the Final Four over the weekend and saw commercial advertising in one of the universities, and they were showing a picture of the lecture hall, and you could tell it was not an all-out iPad deployment at the school, but there were several students sitting in there with an iPad and keyboard and things. So it's not going to be a hindrance. Skills, I think what you're saying is the skills navigating through typing a paper, working on spreadsheets are also able to be done on this device.
Any other questions for Bruce? Yeah. Why don't you come up here and reintroduce yourself and then provide the comments that you want to make.
Again, I'm Hugh Smith. I'm a junior class officer. I'm the vice president. I'm here representing the class officers as well as a large amount of the student body. We had a couple concerns, which he discussed a couple, and then also just continued and more developed on those as well as a couple others we had. So as with the typing, we were talking about the keyboards, and those would be available to some students, but not always, and so we're concerned that everybody's going to want a keyboard because every class, for the most part, uses a keyboard, and it's much easier to use than typing on the screen. But then at the same time, that keyboard is smaller than the general keyboard, and so that makes it more difficult to use, which is more of a nitpicky thing, but it's still kind of a big deal because it can just make a big difference when you're typing a paper. It's a lot easier to have a normal, regular sized keyboard versus typing on a smaller one or on a screen. They're talking about one thing I've heard about is the teacher control, with the Apple Classroom, and how they would be able to control the iPads. And we were just noting how, while that control would be very beneficial to teachers, the issue right now for teachers with getting the attention of their students and trying to get them on task isn't on their computer. Because as it is, almost everything you could get distracted by is firewalled off or just unavailable on our computers, which is very good, I believe. So that teacher control, it's more of an issue with your phone, which is something that it's being developed now with the Away from Bell to Bell or whatever teachers are deciding to call it. It's just that control aspect, while it would be very beneficial, I know a lot of teachers were interested in that, is also not a huge point when it comes towards the issues that are with the iPads, or that we believe there are with the iPads. So as he was discussing the resources, we're worried about the resources available. So here's iMovie, Keynote, Photoshop, or even my math class, our textbook is online, my chemistry class, it's an app, on my desktop. So there would be math books available, like they said, but everybody has a math class, everybody has a science class, and they need those things too. And we're worried that checking out these things, everybody's going to want to need them. And if we're not going one-to-one with keyboards at least, or sticking with MacBooks, then people are going to be trying to check those out and there won't be enough, and we'll have issues with that. Another major issue I've heard is from people who attend a different school. So Oregon Davis has iPads, and a class officer said that she was talking to a student from Oregon Davis who is in the health careers, and she said that like Quizlets and essays are more difficult, and online tests will glitch. Like multiple choice answers can be switched on upon submission, and so like that's I guess because the technology and the software that's involved with the iPads is not as developed and not as just advanced as it is with the text or MacBooks. I just think that a MacBook is a more reliable, consistent, and useful piece of technology to be put in our students' hands. Couple more things. We were worried about the battery life of, I'm not sure, would it last? Do you know? It would. Okay. I just know that sometimes, like, as these are reaching their 4th year, like, I know at first they would always make it through, and now they're slowly starting to decline, and I don't know if it would be the same thing with that, because, like, an iPhone is only meant to last 2 years. So a 4-year thing could be, I don't know if that could be an issue, or I don't know how Apple deals with that. You were talking about the repair. Would that be available or the Apple Care Plus, would that be available if we also went with a renewed deal with MacBooks?
Not the 2C, it's per device. Those are the 25
Okay.
Apple Care, which is the warranty, still is available on MacBooks.
Yeah. So we were concerned with the Mac, or obviously with iPads, is the durability. So they've got that big screen, and you know how students are not as reliable, especially younger and middle-aged, who are screwing around with their iPads. And even older, everybody can make mistakes. So like recently I had my phone on spring break and I was just sitting at dinner and it fell off of my seat, so like not even this high, landed, shattered my screen, which we would not expect, but it's something that can happen with something like an iPad or an iPhone with an exposed screen very easily. And I know, like you said, that there would be that opportunity for the insurance that would cover that, but I don't know how that would have to do with the student, like, dealing with that at the time. They'd have a shattered screen, and that could be an interruption to class, to learning, and then like through the time getting that replaced and getting a temporary. I just think that MacBooks are much more durable. So like I've had this 4 years. Only issues that I've had is the screw fell out, but like it still works completely fine. The screen has no issues, and like as long as you keep it in the case or keep it in your backpack, it's generally safe. And I would say the same for the iPad, except just it's so easy to break. Like it's so much easier. Like if I dropped this, I mean I'm not going to, but I would trust that a lot more likely for my MacBook to be safe from a drop than an iPad, just in general, from any height, in any situation. I had some teachers talk about issues like, since there wouldn't be the resources available on iPads that there are on MacBooks, they would have to revert some things back to paper, which they like, and that's going to be increased paper usage, which is another cost right there. So writing essays, for example, if we're not typing them, because I know AP Lang, we already write a lot, but as it is, we do type also, but we would not be able to type not nearly as much. And I mean, as you said with the keyboards, we would still have keyboards, but everybody has an English class, everybody's writing, so I don't know how that would be balanced. And so it's just a concern that people would have to adjust their lesson plans, adjust how they teach the classes to the iPad, and like reverting to paper even. We also were worried, like, teacher familiar with iPads. I guess if you have this tech to come to the school, they could teach them. But that's also something with students, like, it's completely new. Like, would we use Canvas on the iPads? Okay. I don't know. We had some general just concerns with. That's pretty much all of it. We were just having a lot of issues. I mean, I know some of them are very easily resolved, and others are just, I don't know, there can be a solution found, but we were just worried that those should be voiced before you guys take a vote, because that's kind of a big deal, because it's going to last for the next 4 years, and we just wanted to make sure you guys heard that. And thank you.
Bruce, can you address them?
I can. I was taking notes. He had a lot of things I had to just off the top of my head, some of the things I do know, and I didn't mention before, is all the iPads that we are over do come in cases. So they'll be very similar to the board iPads. So the case is very similar to this in that it is all ruggedized and rubberized around the corners. Corners are actually reinforced. So drops and things like that are a lot more protected in something like this versus just the standard iPad.
iMovie.
iMovie changes,
Keynote,
Keynote, all of that stuff
free
is,
with the iPad.
That's correct, right. All that is with the iPad operating system. Should we take it?
Well, I was gonna
Battery
say-
life.
I was saying, yeah, battery life is an all day, no problem.
Access to keyboards. We've been talking about that, and wondered out of the gates, do we go ahead and do a one-to-one keyboard for every high school kid? And we've talked to some districts who came out of the gates with that, and are still a couple years into it, having several keyboards that are in their original packaging sitting in the media center. And so, if we see that the demand is that, we'll take care of that. We're not going to have a kid go without a keyboard if that's what they feel they need is best.
I mean, that's what's going through my mind in terms of, you gave me a number I couldn't remember. Was it how many keyboards are we starting out with? Or did I hear a number?
You didn't hear a number for keyboards, no.
Right. So whatever that number might be.
Yes.
If the demand is greater, we need to address that.
Yeah, so kind of like I mentioned Andy today, we start with 300, and Tracy calls me and says, I have no more keyboards. We'll get more keyboards. I mean, it's just a matter of the supply and demand, which is kind of hard to tell right now. But as Andy mentioned, there are districts, and I don't know about where Davis, but Colorado was one that did iPad or did keyboards. And then talking to Daniel, he's got cases of keyboards that are never even known. And quite honestly, and again, I stand here, my hand on the Bible, saying I really would have never supported iPads before. And the more I use mine, the easier it is as far as navigating those and typing. And quite honestly, I told Andy today, I actually have the case that has the keyboard built into it, and 9 times out of 10 I flip it over and I don't even pay attention to it. I don't use it.
But to reiterate, if that need exists, we'll be there.
Yes.
I forgot a couple things. Bruce, sorry.
Come on.
Yeah, we were talking a couple other things. We're talking about there's a vast majority or a large group of students who, as it is, if they have to give a lot of effort to do something, they're not going to do it. Like these failing students, especially like E and F range students who are struggling in their classes, and it's because they just don't want to give the effort. And so we're worried that if they have to take these extra steps with an iPad, with getting a keyboard for themselves, downloading these apps, and just anything that would be any particular hindrance to them, we're worried that would just give them less of a desire to give effort, and so that would just widen a range of struggling students. And then you asked about it also earlier, the preparing for college and beyond. We were worried about that because you talked about doctors using iPad minis, but as a whole, in the workforce, I don't know the statistic or anything. I just started researching about this earlier today because I found out about this. In general, vast majority of jobs use computers, not iPads, and I don't see that changing. I know some might transition, but I know a vast majority of jobs are not going to transition anytime soon, and I think that's an important skill to have. And if these students are going K through 12 without ever touching a computer eventually, then I feel like that could be a big deal breaker going into college or into the workforce. Because I know there are some things that are available on iPads, but they're just not the same, and that could make a difference in their ability to get a job, become employed, or find or separate them from other people competing for those same positions. And then one last thing, a friend of mine, his mother teaches at the Colbert Community School Corporation, and so she has experience with Apple Classroom, and he said that she complains about it sometimes because it can become a hassle and like it's not really as eye-catching as or whatever, appealing as it was when they first saw about it. And like I've just from the people who have experience with iPads, I've heard from like I said, the person from Oregon Davis who complained about them being glitchy and not always consistent, and then a teacher from Colbert Community, I don't know her exact name, and I don't have any information, maybe to contact her, but I heard from her son that she complains that they are not as beneficial in the classroom as they seem at first. That's just close. Thank you.
Other notes that you have, Amy? One thing I did want to kind of, I guess it went through my head as you were going through your list. Something that an iPad can do that really a MacBook can too, but when I look back at, and I haven't written a term paper, believe me, in a long time, it's not that easy. But sometimes I think we just need to look at the way we do things and think, are there better ways that we can do it, right? So historically, if you think about a term paper, if I had to sit down and write a term paper right now, I'd grab my MacBook and I'd sit down and I'd research and I'd start typing. But what's to say that you don't grab your iPad and you hit the dictate button and you read your 10-page paper? You don't sit there and type it. You talk to your iPad and you dictate your paper there instead of doing this. Just an option. That's just some of the things that we need to start thinking about. Are we really doing them, and then when I say them, I mean our students, justice in doing it the way we're always used to and comfortable? Sometimes looking at the tools that we use and maybe thinking, can we do that better, is what we need to be doing. Are there any comments from the tech committee people? Yeah.
I'd like to say a few words if possible. From two different perspectives, I look at this issue from a parent's perspective and then, of course, from a teacher's perspective. My own two daughters are in the high school. They're nervous about this transition. Change is always hard. But I have confidence that we have looked at those concerns and we're going to address those concerns. And whether it's having those extra MacBooks available or the keyboards available. And from a teacher's perspective, this the ability to lock students out of a site, or more importantly, lock them into a site, is very intriguing to me. Technology is wonderful, but it's a distraction at the same time. And yes, we can argue cell phones provide other distractions. I'd be fine with banning cell phones in our high school, and I think we should. And many teachers already require them to be put away. With the iPads, when a student is now on the iPad, I can see what they're looking at. It doesn't have to be me walking around behind them. Because as soon as I start walking close to them, guess what happens? That window's down and then they're, magically back on what they're supposed to be. Now I can see and I can lock the person out of that site. So I find that very interesting as a teacher, and when we explore the idea, I think a lot of teachers were intrigued by it. But it always comes down to cost and benefits. And you have to look at the bigger picture. And you have to compare the total costs and benefits. And I'm not just talking financially. Again, part of it is with curriculum. We're going to get professional development. How long has it been since we have been having professional development for our staff on technology? It's been a long time. And we've had a major overturn in staff. And so that can benefit our veteran teachers and our new teachers. Okay, but if I heard you right, you're talking about $200,000 savings per year estimated, which can start being captured next year.
Yes.
Something that our students may not understand is the financial challenges that we have year after year because of less funding. This can help us meet some of those ends that we need to. So overall, again, I feel very good that we are looking at these concerns seriously. We're looking to address them. We've talked to the English department, which have a major concern. We've talked to the math departments, and it's not going to be easy. There's going to be some anxiety over it, but you adapt. And I think that will be the case with the iPads.
Do we want to continue talking with our students as well?
I think so. And by the way, yeah, one last thing as a parent, tuition costs, awesome. We're already spending, $200, $300 on textbook fees. And if anything to bring that down can help.
I'd like to know, you were talking about you're talking with our students. As a student government, none of us were ever given a voice on this. I took matters in my own hands and came to this meeting tonight because none of us were ever included in this discussion, and we thought it would be important that we heard. And so, earlier today, finding out that this was happening, none of us even knew that this vote was happening tonight until, I don't know who told us, but it's just the type of thing. We were left out of that discussion, and so I sent out a poll to the junior, sophomore, and freshman classes because our senior won't be here next year, and asked which would you rather use next year, MacBooks, iPads, other. I had 303 responses in a span of a couple hours, and honestly, that shows that a lot of people care about this topic because generally people just skim over their emails, ignore them, and also I had a lot of people who chose the other and gave their voice. So of those, I had only 23 people voice their opinion for iPads. I had 269 for MacBooks, and then I had comments that were not just of iPads, but just generally for computers. And I had some people even go as far to say anything but an iPad. And so I just like to note that the students seem to be collectively against that push. And I know that doesn't necessarily have to matter because changes happen, but that's just something to take into consideration as our students really feel strongly about that.
Sure, I appreciate that. And intend to engage in conversation as we navigate the change to identify, you've identified some barriers here in a short period of time. We want to continue to have that dialogue and conversation so that we know that we can kind of anticipate a lot of those things and that we can navigate those and still allow you to be successful and not be burdened by it. Still able to do the things that you've been used to doing and learn new things with it. And continue to work together, just out of my office, but through teachers and principals and navigate that so we can be as successful as possible.
Because I just think, just as it affects you guys, it affects 50 of us, and so that's just pretty important. That's a very large part of that.
Any questions or additional questions? Or anybody else have comments? Who else was on the technology committee? You mentioned that were anything you want to add?
I think it's going to be, personally, I think it's going to be a great opportunity to relook at how we use technology and how we use it in instruction. And I think I agree with Laura. It's been a long time since we've looked at our practices. And like Bruce said, I had carpal tunnel surgery 2 years ago. My right hand, my dominant hand, with Google, in a Google Doc, I voice a lot because I just couldn't type. My hand hurt so bad. And I was like, man, if I just can talk this, I can get a lot more done. And so I agree with him. It's going to give us, all of us, an opportunity, including our students, to figure out how can we do things better and make it be more efficient.
I would have gone to that original meeting in Chicago and heard the iPad presentation, and I left that as a former English teacher thinking, I want to teach with iPads. I wanted something to address the typing piece, and so that was still something that was really important to me. What I'm hearing from Bruce and Andy is that there's a plan in place and commitments to work with students on providing keyboard for them, but the tools there of the iPad were powerful beyond the simple controls. I think there are ways to work with students to get them to be more interactive and collaborative, and it happens with that technology. It's impressive.
Thanks, Bruce.
Absolutely.
We need to vote. I don't think I put this on the table yet, did I? No. So we have before us a recommendation to consider a lease renewal agreement as described with Apple. Is there a motion? That motion is second discussion.
I just think that I think kids can adapt. I mean, I know it might be tough in the beginning, but kids are really adaptable. And the savings, when we're cutting so many other things, we can save that much money. I think that's an important.
It is a value proposition. It's not, we can do a lot of things to cut what we spend, and sacrifice the result. So I think it is a value proposition in terms of if you can save money yet have the opportunity at results that you want. I mean, that's really, I think, what you're saying in terms of the value proposition. And what I'm going to vote yes, but my caveat to that is I want some follow-up in terms of I want the interaction from the students. Let your administration, your teachers know what you're experiencing. And nothing's ever etched in stone, forever. If we're seeing issues, obviously we need to hear from staff or students or administration. I'm sure we're going to hear about that. But I too have inquired of other schools and other. I work with a lot of different schools, and I'm no tech person, so I can't even repeat what they tell me. I'm not even going to try, but the experience is what I'm after in terms of what are they experiencing. And what I'm hearing is pretty positive. But I know there's also, nothing's ever perfect. So what is important to me is the flexibility that I'm seeing and hearing that'll be part of this, that if this isn't for you and you need the MacBook, it's going to be different. And we're going to see and experience what that demand and what that right balance is, and I'm sure we're going to be able to address that. Those are my thoughts. I appreciate everyone's input. I appreciate the technology committee. I appreciate the student feedback. But that's where I'm at. With that, we have a motion and a second. All in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you all. I think this is related. 4.3, consider permission to advertise sealed bids for sale of used computers.
Okay, so very similar to the process that we did again 4 years ago, is recouping the value that we have in our current inventory. So the motion that what we have in front of you would be to start accepting sealed bids for our current inventory of iPads in K-1, as well as a portion of our current MacBooks in grades 2 through 12, not all of them. Like I said before, our intention is to buy some new. We have actually about 160 of the current 11-inch models that haven't even left my office from the service center that have never been touched, so they are completely brand new. So between the new ones that we're going to purchase, the ones that we have in my shop, and then some of the inventory that we're going to keep to get that number up around 1,000 of units we're going to keep, we'll offload the rest of them, and again, accept sealed bids for that. It's still going to be a couple months out. I just want to get it on the agenda for tonight so we can start that process, because our end of the year collection is going to be a little bit different with how we organize things. We'll have companies that will want to come in and inspect them to give us a quote and a bid. So we'll look to get those mid-June, and probably come back in July with a recommendation.
So with that combination, we're going to have or keep 1,000. How many are we going to have available for sale?
So right now, our current inventory of MacBooks is about 4,260. And that's everything from support staff, regular staff, students, loaners, some old actually MacBooks that we kept from our first lease that we used as loaners. So the number, and you see under it, is kind of plus or minus.
Yeah.
So right now, we're estimating with the iPads, we've got about 600 in operation of KM1, but we're in preschool, pre-K, that we'll probably throw in there to give us some more.
There's recommendations in a motion.
So moved.
A motion second to provide permission to advertise sealed bids sale of computers. All in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carried. Selling some other stuff. Consider permission to advertise sealed bids for sale of semi-trailer.
Yeah, go ahead.
The van has had the trailer out there and it has had a few issues that safety concerns, which we addressed at the time, and it's fixed. But in dealing with that, they would prefer to have a trailer. They prefer to have a trailer that was easier to load and easier access for students and assistants to help with them. And so they would like you to consider selling the old van trailer and accepting sealed bids on April 1st.
Okay, that's the recommendation. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Motion is second to provide permission to advertise sealed bids for sale of semi-trailer. Any questions? All in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. 4.5, consider school breakfast and lunch prices.
Yes, we are currently in as a matter of fact, we'll have our exit interview for the school lunch nutrition on-site review. And they have determined through that review, that the administrative review, we are to raise our prices of our a la carte items, which they will be going up approximately 10 cents per item in order to meet their requirements. Evidently, they said we were not charging enough, and we had to also do a corrective action plan for this. The second thing is, generally, you complete a form through the USDA that's called a paid lunch equity to determine if we need to raise student regular lunch prices on the regular meal. And being proactive, knowing how things were going, we will need to increase our lunch prices in 2019-20. This paid lunch equity is figured from the number of meals served and the monthly revenue from the past year. That's how that is determined. But later on, we'll have to, once that paid lunch equity form is available to us, once it's released, we will be bringing that back to you and showing you the results of that. But it would increase the student prices for breakfast by a nickel, and the student lunches and breakfasts are reduced by a dime. Adult prices will go up a dime, breakfast and lunch, and milk is increased by a nickel. A la carte items, again, as I said, would go up by a dime. That's what Corey is recommending. Is there anything else?
Just that these comes to us as expectations from administrative review and USDA. It's not something necessarily to seek or desire.
No, we don't desire to. Basically mandated.
Sure.
Yeah.
So your time's.
Yeah.
So, you've heard the recommendation and lack of choices. Is there a motion?
Second.
Motion second. All in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. 4.6, consider agreement for NIESC dietitian services.
This is a service that we have been utilizing. It's just a continuation of it. Consultation that we received on that assists in meeting some of those regulations, not necessarily prices, but with meeting the expectations for the types of meals, calories, nutrition, things like that. And that gets reviewed as well. And since we engaged with the service in years past, those reviews have all passed. And so we'd like to recommend continuing that agreement with the service center dietitian.
Is there a motion?
So moved.
Motion and second to renew or approve the agreement for NIESC dietitian services. All in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. 4.7, consider agreement for residential services.
Yes, this is part of our special education excess cost, providing supplemental service for one of our students. So it's an agreement this year with the Indiana Department of Education, and then they will then work with the vendor that we have that provides educational services for one of our students at TC Harris. So we're asking you to accept that agreement and the support provided by the IDOE along with funding.
For the recommendations or a motion? Motion is second. Any questions? Motion is to approve the agreement for residential services as described. All in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carried. 4.8, consider Jesse lease agreement.
The special education cooperative in which we're a part, their offices are hoping to move into some of our existing space that we have. We have 2 classrooms, Webster and Menominee. This agreement outlines the plans for this. And then the intention is in the next couple of years when the existing Lincoln gets renovated that they will occupy space there as well. This agreement covers that transition. So the district board of directors has approved this with the authority for me and their executive director to just make some minor changes as we navigate some details without changing the overall intent. And so I would ask this to review this.
Heard the recommendations or a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Motion and second to approve. All in favor, indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carried. 4.9, consider permission to apply for grants.
Every year about this time, we come to you asking.
This is always my favorite thing.
I know, right? Can you please let us write grants for money? But yeah, a lot of the grants that are listed on here help address the diverse needs of our students. So the list that's attached to board docs has our previous year's allocation. The only one we've received so far is Title I, but the rest will be coming soon. So just as a reference point, those are in your packet. So yes, asking for your permission.
Is there a motion?
Second.
Motion and second to apply for money, free money. All in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carried. 4.1, consider revisions to the classified conditions of employment and the classified guidelines.
Yes, we've had some internal transfers that just require us to make a few adjustments to the classified conditions, and so we'll see where they're reflected in those are.
Is there a motion?
Second.
Motion is second. Any questions? All in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carried. 4.11, review student handbook K through 12.
See some administrators here this evening. We've been working on that, and so we'll hand it over to you.
Thanks for your patience. It's our annual trip to come to you with some changes or updates and see if there's any questions about handbook stuff. So I'll try to go through them pretty quickly, and if you have questions, we'll stop in the section. So corporation-wide handbook changes we'll start with. One thing that we are doing is, based on a recent law change, we are changing our medicals policy so that we are covered with students who may be taking low THC hemp products for medical reasons. This was under the advice of the ISB lawyer when we were looking at our language regarding the use of, well, what happens if we have students who have Juul devices or vape pens that have THC in them. As you said, you're covered, but you probably want to add this policy regarding prescriptive things and then adjust your policy on that expulsion thing to say, you know, if you're taking this medically And it's being taken the way we say, which is in the nurse's office, administered by the nurse like we do any other pharmaceutical drug. You're okay. If you're in the bathroom and take a pull on one, it's not going to work. That was just an adjustment to that based on some inquiry we had done, based on some trends that we've unfortunately been seeing at the high school and in area high schools of students now using the Juul or the vape devices to basically get high with THC as a marijuana derivative. Number two, we changed policy to makeup work for prearranged absences. It was brought to us by students that our current policy with students is if you miss a day of school, you get additional days to make up the work. If you take a prearranged absence, your work is due the day you come back, as opposed to a student who's sick that gets those additional days after they come back. So we just brought that in line with that. And then this change of suspension expulsion policy again, so that if you're using THC as prescribed with the nurse, you're okay. If you're doing it somewhere else, we're going to have an issue. And then lastly, also a student thing, and another trend, we moved clear and plastic from the acceptable water containers. Just they need to be able to be sealed. We're seeing more and more students with, well, Jill has an example of Yeti, Brooke, and I've got a giant, I can't remember what mine's called, but we're seeing more and more of those types of things. And as one of the students pointed out, I can put clear alcohol in the water bottle and nobody's going to check the water bottle. So, what's the, I get that. So we thought that was a good idea as a committee and made that change. So any questions on corporation transactions? All right. With that being said, I'll turn it over to Craig, who's here for Lauren, who can be here tonight to do a prior engagement to the elementary.
So on behalf of the elementary, they've added one change to their addendum. And it's under the Code of Conduct for Elementary Travel Intramural Programs. We've added some information there about the travel basketball programs for parents. Questions on that? And as far as the junior high is concerned, we just had a few changes grammatically. We changed the word virtual learning to e-learning day in our addendum. We added a period, it has some capital letters. One of the major changes we had was under communication devices. We said the headphones, AirPods, and earbuds are prohibited during the passing periods throughout the school day. We need to be able to have students here. If we have a crisis or something, we need to make an announcement with PA. The students need to be able to hear that. And should we, have earbuds or headphones on and be able to hear that? Questions for those?
Thank you. All right, the Riverside addendum, a couple minor changes with cost replacement for our assignment notebooks, and then just actually adding some language on plagiarism. There is language in the overall handbook, but we added a piece on that in our addendum. More common additions that we made, we updated our tardy policy to be a little bit more student friendly because, believe it or not, our 5th and 6th years don't drive, so mostly the tardies aren't their fault. Occasionally they are, but we made that be a little bit more student friendly. And then we changed our attendance from perfect attendance to excellence in attendance, and with that we are recognizing the excused absences, and students who have those doctor's notes and have excused absences will be recognized for excellence in attendance. Questions?
Back to the high school. We did just some kind of housekeeping things. We changed the requirements for graduation in the GQE to reflect the graduation pathways that are coming in this year. So that's actually pretty extensive, 3 pages worth of changes because of the chart that's in there. Cleaned up some language, AP dual credit and vocational classes so it more reflects what we're going to be able to offer next year. That's kind of a yearly thing as classes have declining enrollments or increasing enrollments. We offer things and don't offer things. From student requests, we added job shadowing along with college visits. So that right now, if you do a college visit, you're going to get a prearranged absence form. We're not going to count it against you for things like perfect attendance or your attendance, to be on an attendance contract. Students say, wait, some of us, we're going to go in the workforce. Can we set up a job shadow and we come back and do some type of report, much like the college students? Yeah, that's a pretty good idea. So we thought the time had come for that, and we appreciate the students bringing that to us. 2 new clubs that we were at. We were at a culinary club, which they were very excited to get started. In fact, a student who is initiating this club, probably emailed Mr. Martin and I the first week of school, and has regularly emailed us every month or so of, hey, when's it going to go to the board? When's it, they're fired up. As you know, next year we'll be offering a vocational culinary class that previously been in Ancilla. It's going to move in-house. So they're hoping to do some things combined with that, do some outside class things with that club. And then we also have the Finding Light Club, which is they actually have in some of these little wristbands early on. It came out of that sale. It's a group that is going to look to try and do positive things around school, but also really trying to create some awareness on social and emotional health for our students. So Mrs. Porteous is working with a couple students there that this is something that's very near and dear to their heart, and so we're excited about that as well. Late to school time. Currently, we had said if you miss half the class period, we consider it late to school. In response to faculty and some student conversations, we're bumping that up to basically 15 minutes after you should get there. The idea being, unlike Riverside, they talk about their kids don't drive. The majority of our kids, they drive or they take the bus or they get here way like that. You should be able to get to class in 15 minutes after the first bell rings. As before, the late school penalty is, unless it's excused by a parent, because let's say the child was sick and then decided to come to school, or they have car problems and they call and they let us know. We have a couple kids who have allergy issues. They'll be late a couple times, a month maybe when it's allergy season. And their parents we've worked with, they just call and say, hey, they had a headache from allergies or an allergy issue. Okay, we excuse that. But if it's, I'm just showing up late because I didn't want to wake up today, they'll have a detention 2 days after they got that late. And we've been doing that for a couple of years. We're going to bump that time up, hoping that maybe we'll start seeing students get in sooner. What we've seen a pattern is kids, well, I'm going to be late already, so I'm going to come in at 20 minutes late when I could have been in at 10 minutes late because I don't have any kind of penalty at that point. So we're hoping this will push that down and get more students in the class and be there for their learning, which is why we want them. And then tardy consequences, we brought back into practice. We had done a tier thing that went 12, 15, 18, 21. From 12 on, we kind of got to the point of we were handing out a lot of ISSs and punishments and not getting a lot of bang for the buck. What we found worked really well is we told students, great, you got so many tardies, you go to lunch detention every day till the end of the quarter, but if you're in class on time every period, the next day, the day previous, you don't have the lunch detention. So if I go to no tardies on Tuesday, I'll have lunch detention on Wednesday. And miraculously, when we've done that, the students have been our most habitual students. The majority of them have started to show up to their classes on time because they value that lunch time. So that's been something we've been experimenting with and wanted to bring into the handbook and solidify that. Any questions? And Ms. Selfie has one last thing.
I just have one small one. WSOI for the past, well, since our inception, we offered online help as an option for our students and alternative PE, and we are eliminating that mainly because with the rise in social and emotional needs of our students, we feel face-to-face help is a better option for them. So it was always an option for kids to pick one or the other, but we are moving to full face-to-face help, and so for our kids in there. Questions?
I think we're all. So this is not an action item, we're just receiving these changes. Appreciate your explanation. Move on to 4.12, legislative report.
Well, the session is nearing end, and at the time when a lot of action is happening, and so more challenging to keep up with those. The amendments being pushed through. Bills are in the second house right now. Watching the budget bill, it's in the Senate. It's been released today. I've not seen it, but should be here sometime soon. The House version did show a subtle increase in foundation amounts, but a significant decrease in the complexity index, and just kind of hearing rumors all over the place as far as the Senate version is going to be. So we're keeping our eye on that, and then obviously that correlates with the moment, and we try to project revenue for next year. So we're still hopeful, but probably still projecting a decline in that. at least it will be what it was this past year. An interesting note, I did see early this morning, there was an amendment from a bill that is going to possibly significantly change the collective bargaining process. So that's still in the being heard phase. I don't think I've seen that yet, but that's to see that, and as well as some others that have come through here. So I know you asked to speak on this, so the work that we're trying to do is to connect and build relationships with legislators continues. Just so we can make sure that they see the picture of the experience.
I think that was Senate Bill 390.
I'll have to check out the bill. I haven't seen it. I did have an opportunity over spring break to go down to the State House, and a number of area teachers went down. I went down with a teacher from Bremen, and we had lunch with Jack Jordan. Later on, we were able to talk with Senator Mishler outside of the Senate chamber. And during that lunchtime, and it was really kind of emphasized with our talks with Senator Mishler, they don't really have an idea about Marshall County. They have third houses in Elkhart, in Warsaw, in St. Joe County. And we keep asking, when's the next time you come to Marshall County? And so we made the proposal to Jack Jordan to begin with, and he suggested that we invite Senator Mishler. But what we proposed is that we get on Marshall County schools, we get our superintendents, a teacher rep, and a school board rep. And in the summer, of course, after session is over, we have a meeting here in Marshall County so that they better understand what are the challenges of a rural county. It's not the same as what they often are facing in their decisions in the state legislature, because a lot of times that's geared towards more urban areas. And it's just evident to me they don't understand. They don't understand. These conversations that we just had about technology and trying to save money to meet our needs, other issues that we're having as we talk about some of the changes in the handbook, they don't know. They don't know. And unless we reach out to them, I really don't feel like they're ever going to reach out to us. And so I would encourage you to support having this meeting in the summer, and maybe we can start talking to the area superintendents, the local presidents, and of course within the school boards, and let's help them to understand.
Yeah, it would be a centralized location.
Appreciate that. Glad to participate if that comes together. Any other legislative issues?
No.
Okay. There's still up with superintendent remarks. So can you...
Sure. I guess it is kind of a continuation, but despite the differences that I feel towards some of those proposed legislative items, I tend to view sometimes that there's an aim to undermine the honorable work trying to be done in public schools. It creates the challenging decisions that we have to make because of funding. We experienced that this evening in the changing of devices. Also been looking on seeking alternate ways just to fund other areas of support for our students. All that being said, I still couldn't be more proud of our staff, of our teachers in creative ways, and the work that they're doing, and our administrators, and even our students in still putting out a great service to our community and the education that's provided them. I've been participating in South Bend, Elkhart Regional Group's Committee on Education and Workforce, and interestingly, I'm the only superintendent right now, or public educator in that 3-county region on that group. And so with that, we're doing great things, and it's evident in how we compare to how other schools are trying to work with their communities and agencies and businesses. And so we've got a good, great thing going here in spite of those challenges. And I just, in the midst of all of that, I just felt obligated to say that. I don't have more information on this, as I just kind of got word as I was coming into this meeting from previous, but one of our schools is going to receive a national recognition here soon from from the New Tech Network and Washington Discovery Academy, and named Spotlight Elementary School for the work that they're doing there. And the list goes on. But that process, that product, everything all begins in kindergarten. And kindergarten roundup is this week. It's always an exciting evening, Thursday night, all of our elementary schools. So just be on the excitement, look out for that. I'm excited to welcome those families and those kids into our system. Point of information, our next meeting is going to be moved. It's going to be on election night. And so we'll be moving it to Wednesday, May 15th, and we'll have 7:30 start time on that. Instead of 7, just 15th at 7:30.
Very good. Any questions for Andy? Thank you all for, it's a long meeting for us. Are there any comments on any of the agenda items? Anyone in the audience? Thank you for being here. Anything else from the board? If not, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. All in favor?
Aye.
We're adjourned. Thank you very much.